It's time for Microbrew, Milwaukee Brewers chatter from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. My name is J.R. Radcliffe, host of the show every week, talking your Milwaukee Brewers. On the other line, Curt Hogue, Brewers reporter for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. And the Brewers, well, they're 13-6 as we record this. This is unusual for us. We usually record on a Sunday after the day game. The Brewers have a chance to sweep the Cardinals as we sit here recording it. But you, listeners, you know more than we do. You know what happens in that Sunday game. We do not. There's the Milwaukee Bucks going on. There's schedules going on. So we have to kind of bump it up a little bit early. Hopefully you can understand. We could still talk a lot about this Milwaukee Brewers baseball team. They put themselves in position to have a nice week, whether or not they win on Sunday in St. Louis. They have taken the first two against the Cardinals. They took only 1 out of 3 against the San Diego Padres, the first series loss of the year at American Family Field. They were able to scrounge a pretty exciting 1-0 victory on Wednesday to close off that series. So decent situation, decent setup right now. Curt Hogue. I don't know. Where do we start, Curt? Are you are you going to be watching the Bucks on Sunday since we're not going to be recording the podcast in our usual window? What's going to be going on with you?
I think so. Yeah, I think I will. Let's just preface the episode with this. Let's hope nothing happens on Sunday.
Yeah, we'll do like a mini, like let's say
Ray no hitter.
In the amazing event that Colin Ray throws a no hitter. First of all, I have so many mea culpas on takes I've had about Colin Ray over the years that I'm going to have to immediately dig into. And then furthermore, I think we'll have to do like a mini something or other. We would not be able to let that go unnoticed. But it's going to take something pretty extraordinary, I think, for us to go back and record a Sunday addendum, wouldn't you say? I mean, what else? If not a no-hitter by Colin Ray, what are the other things that could happen that would force us, positively compel us to go on a deep dive again, Curt?
Thiago Vieira pitches.
He pitched on
gets in back-to-back games. That would be a big deal at this point of the season.
No one would care about that.
Well, what are the things that have risen to the emergency level of emergency pod?
Well,
Josh Hader was traded.
That was an emergency pod.
Burns was traded. Craig Counsell went to the Cubs, which, okay, by the way, before we really get it too far into things, also hello to your kids in the background.
Yeah, shouts to Lydia in the background there. Yep.
Hello, Lydia. Thank you. My daughter says thank you.
Yes.
For the frozen
gifts.
Everything. Yeah. Olaf.
Yeah.
Plush toys, and thank you from me for the Girl Scout cookies provided.
Absolutely. Yeah, she has contributed quite a bit to the Hogue household between the hand-me-down frozen toys, the cookies.
Very appreciative. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, where were we? Oh, the story about so the Cubs broadcast I was watching this evening on Saturday. Mm-hmm. A young man caught a foul ball, and they were interviewing him, and he was all sort of gassed up, and he had all this emotion. Well, turns out he said he was from Milwaukee, but he's a Cubs fan now because of Craig Counsell.
No kidding. So he is one of those converts. He's like one of those Brett Favre fans that became like Jets fans for a year. He's one of those.
I doubt we have very many people that listen to the pod that subscribe to that theory, but I have gotten a couple emails from people that are like that. So they do exist.
I just can't. If it were like a player, I guess I could understand it a little bit more. But the manager, like, we don't even really have our arms around what a big league manager does. We've talked about this before, to the point that does your fandom really get attached to a big league manager? I mean, he's different from others in that he's local, but like, I don't know. That's weird to me. That's a little different. I don't know.
Maybe he really he felt in his core the 2015 or 2016. No, I think it was 2017 Craig Counsell commercial where he's like, I am you. You are me.
I don't know
we
you.
Are one happy family. And the kid was like, yes, absolutely. You and I, we are cut from the same cloth. And when you put on different cloth, so do I.
One of the great.
Or maybe he's just a 12-year-old.
He's just a windsock. He's like, whatever. I was here. I got this jersey that got me into it. That video, one of the great triumphs of the Brewers video department. I mean, that really, really hit and it hits very differently today. But I think we all agree that was quite the introduction to Craig Counsell, his first full season as manager. Just a great video intro, shots of Whitefish Bay, just sort of like shots of County Stadium and 82 and all the big highlights in Brewers history. Gosh, it still gets me a little bit fired up, even though it turned out to be a lie, Curt. It was a lie. We didn't know it then, but we know it now. Wow.
Turns out this is going to be some bad news maybe for some people, but athletes and sports persona of the like, they do pander sometimes.
They do.
They don't always mean everything they say.
Yes. Weirdly, though, I believe Craig Counsell when he said he felt the responsibility, the stewardship of the organization. I just think he also was like, I did that. Now I'd like to go get paid a little more. And yeah, it doesn't matter to me. The rivalry doesn't matter to me. So let's go south just a little bit and stay in the neighborhood. Can commute. And there we go. That's what we have. We're going to be on Craig Counsell watch because May is right around the corner, and the Cubs and the Brewers are going to face off. So we will do that. But before we get there, Curt, we have to talk about what's going on with a different rival, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Brewers again, taking the first two of that series, and we'll imagine what a 3-1 loss on Sunday. I think Colorado goes 5 innings, allows 2 runs. Should we do that?
I'm going to say 5-3.
5-3. I like that. Yeah, I see that working out. Brewers are playing good baseball, have been all year long, but I don't want to make this pessimistic, but I have some questions, some issues, I guess you could say. We will talk about the good. We'll talk about all the good things that have happened, but speaking of the manager, if we're going to talk about Craig Counsell, his replacement, Pat Murphy, he's doing some stuff, Curt, that is interesting to me, and I want to get your take on it. The way I feel like this is a slippery slope. It's a very dangerous path to tread when we're talking about bullpen usage. It is a very popular thing to complain about. Maybe it's a little bit less cliche if we're talking about it in the context of a time when things have worked out for the most part. He is using guys in ways that I can't quite wrap my head around. And I'm not even talking about like roles. I'm not a big bullpen roles guy. I think that gets overstated a little bit, even though I know players like it, coaches do like it to some degree. Having guys in very strict sort of roles. You've got your setup guy, your 7th inning guy, your long reliever, your, guy who comes in because it's a lefty lineup, things like that. I can't for the life of me figure out who's going to be coming in or who's going to be pitching in certain situations. You've got Abner Uribe pitching on Saturday in a game that was well in hand when Thiago Vieira is just sitting there. He did, and Vieira pitched too, but he only pitched, I think, an inning. Or maybe 2, but I don't know. It just cried out for like they're up 8. Let Thiago Vieira cook. That's the only thing that matters right now. Letting Trevor McGill go 2 innings on Friday and his first start back from returning off of the concussion list. You're using Uribe and Peguero and Payamp almost every day at this point, whether or not they're way ahead or way behind. I'm already concerned about the way the pitching staff looks long term. I already, have expressed. I don't think the starting rotation is going, that this system is going to work for the whole season. The bullpen is already feeling a little bit taxed to me. And then I think Pat Murphy just kind of like uses the same bullets every day. And it's very different from Craig Counsell, who was very eager to punt on a game. And I don't mean that pejoratively. I mean, when he saw it wasn't going well, you wouldn't see a top flight reliever in that game. He would save them for the next day or the day after that. He was always thinking, the next game. Pat Murphy, I think, is a little bit more, let's win tonight's game, kind of at all costs. And I don't know if that's a great idea. That's a cliche, but I don't know if it's a great idea. So tell me what you're thinking about Pat Murphy and the way he has deployed his bullpen thus far.
Yeah, I think you set it up pretty well there. It starts for me with the pitching staff as a whole. No team has gotten fewer innings from its starting pitchers than the Milwaukee Brewers. Mm-hmm. Like we've talked about it. This is by design. And not necessarily like by great design. It's just kind of the way it is. DL Hall has pitched into the 5th inning once. I think once.
And quite honestly, given the results, that is for the best.
He's completed the 4th inning twice. So
it's been a struggle.
And that is not the anomaly on the staff. The anomaly is, Freddie Peralta got through 6 innings.
And just 6 innings. I mean, he was great, but like
they've only had 3. I think they've had 5 starts of 6 innings, maybe 6. But either way, Peralta's done it 2 or 3 times, I think 3 times. And then Colin Ray's done it once, maybe twice by the time you're listening to this, who knows? And Joe Ross has done it once.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, they're getting 4 innings to start from their starting pitchers, no exaggeration.
Yeah.
And that's going to make, that's going to magnify the bullpen usage significantly. It's going to increase their inning total significantly. However, if you do look at those innings totals, I think there's 4 guys going into Sunday that are already at 10 innings in 19 games, over 10 innings. Bryce Wilson's done it. Abner's done it. Peguero's done it. And either Vieira or Brian Hudson, someone's up there too. Someone else is up there too that I'm forgetting. Hobie Milner is the other one. And like some of these guys, like Hobie Milner's a rubber arm, they can handle it, but it's like not so much the concern now. Although there have been some concerning outings, in the last week of like, this guy's in the game again. He does not look crisp. It's more down the road. Like, how much can you tax all these individual guys? And then like you could look at some specific instances of when guys are being used, and for sure that prompts some questions. It's not so much for me like the wrong guy is in the game when it's a 2-run lead. For the most part,
Right.
I think you would have to applaud how Pat Murphy is deploying his guys with a lead. Now you could certainly nitpick the Trevor McGill situation on Friday night in St. Louis. Like, if that guy's going to start the 9th inning, you kind of maybe just want to like, it's his time to sink or swim. Don't bring a new guy in, when the tying runs on 3rd, and that guy's also been pretty heavily taxed. But yeah, it's kind of like you mentioned. It's like it's not this, that game where it's not in the game where the questionable usage comes up that leads to a possibly bad situation in terms of wins or losses, if that makes sense. It's down the road a bit. It's like using, for instance, using Uribe on Tuesday night to throw 30-something pitches when you're down by 2 or 3. He needed a get-right outing, but did he need to throw 30 pitches in the 4th and 5th inning? And then going back to him the next day. And then on Saturday, he's now up to 90 pitches on the week or so because he went for 5 outs when you had Thiago Vieira up. Like, granted, the Brewers, none of those Uribe outings led to them losing the game. However, how does this shape up in a month or 2 months, when he's on 30 innings? We'll see. I mean, it's all skeptical, it's all kind of prognosticated in the future at this point, and it hasn't really burned the Brewers yet. I thought it was going to burn them twice this week, both Wednesday and Friday. It didn't end up doing that. So the results are good, but yeah, it's just also, it's kind of a different way of going about it. And I don't think a lot of other, teams maybe paid as close of attention to bullpen usage down by 5 as the Brewers did in past couple of years, because like you said, Craig Counsell had a very specific way of doing this, and it has deviated from that significantly.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I guess I don't know what's normal for a team when they're down 5. Do they often just punt? And it isn't even down 5. It's down 3 in the 6th. Like, that's in reach. But for Craig Counsell, that was a game where you're not using your best guys. You might be, and you could certainly shift course if your offense gets you a few runs. Brewers offense wasn't often getting 3 runs at a crack, like that was sort of the nature of the team. So he just didn't waste resources. And I say waste in quotes because it's possible that these guys are all able to be significant contributors time and time and time again. And we're wrong about the idea of babying them, or babying them is the wrong word, but like just giving them breathers here. Like, maybe this is going to work. It is just such a deviation. And I don't know if other teams do that. I don't know if other teams are more attentive to say, when we're down 3 runs in the 6th, we go to our lesser guys and hope for the best. And if it doesn't work out, okay, we're going to fight tomorrow. I mean, going back to that cliche about we try to win every night, I feel like it's just an open secret in Major League Baseball. You say that, but you don't mean it, because of course you want to win tonight, but you want to win the next 15 games. There's so many of them. So you have to be thinking about the longer term. You can't be using a guy who's as good as Elvis Peguero when you're down 3 runs in the 6th. You have to use him, be more judicious, or at least that's kind of my interpretation of the thinking. But Pat Murphy's been a little bit different that way. So I don't know. I would say that I guess it's sort of a wait and see, because like you said, it's not something that shows itself in a particular game. It's got to be a cumulative effect over time. And this team is going to keep using its depth in AAA. The question is, do they have enough guys to do that? I feel like you're going to really see it in the middle of May when guys are taxed or not effective because they've been used as much as they have. I guess we'll see. I want to talk about one of the starters. You mentioned DL Hall. I think it sounds like, based on what we heard from Pat Murphy after Saturday's performance, where he once again was able to only go 4 innings, he settled down a little bit, but like, let's be honest, there's a couple things working against him. One is he walks everybody. He had 4 walks again in 4 innings on Saturday. And the other is that there seems to have been an inability to adjust from the guy who throws max velocity 98 miles an hour as like a relief pitcher to try and bring that down a little bit as a starter. You're getting an ineffective fastball. You're getting a pitch that just is not effective. And that's his calling card. And if that's not effective, I don't know what you have. It sounds like there might be some changes afoot there, whether that means he's a reliever or he goes down to AAA. I don't know. But it feels like one of those two things has to happen for DL Hall. They have not seen a start from him where he has been, really been giving them what they need. So give me what you're seeing from him, what you think comes next for him. I don't want to make it like, I don't want to make it sound like he can't be a big league contributor, but you're just not seeing it as a starting pitcher right now.
Yeah. The path to successfully being a big league starting pitcher for DL Hall gets much tougher when he's throwing 91, 92. Now, obviously, yeah, of course he's throwing, he's not throwing 97, 98. Of course, it's not going to work as well. But the fastball, like we've seen 91, 92 fastballs work. Colin Ray's works. Wade Miley throws 88, but 89.
Brian Hudson.
Well, it's a different story. Like it's the command, you mentioned that, is already spotty, both in the zone and out. And 2, it's not moving. Yeah. Guys are putting great swings on it every time. There's still a little swing and miss in like some of the secondaries, but he's having a tough time putting guys away because sometimes it takes the secondaries to get ahead. And then, you try to sneak a fastball and it's not getting snuck by most guys unless they're caught off guard and they take it. I think his whiff rate on the fastball is like 11% or so, which is very low relative to the rest of the league. And now remember, this is the guy who, when he was traded, all the talk, I remember the Brewers sent out tweets about like the 80 grade fastball, Mr. 80 grade fastball. And of course we're not seeing it with the velocity, but we're not seeing it with some of the secondary traits either. Like, does it have to be 97, 98 for it to get that carry? I guess so. Would it be faster out of the bullpen? Maybe. But is like, now you're entering the tricky spot of, do you punt on starting right now to put him in the bullpen? Like, are you fidgeting too much with the long-term evaluation because of 4 bad starts? That is the situation the Brewers in. I honestly don't know what my answer would be. Like, sure, he would be better out of the bullpen right now, no doubt. But I don't think you traded for him to be a bullpen arm. So this is the tricky spot for the Brewers to be in. But, what if he just ultimately is a bullpen arm? What if it's Josh Hader? Why waste your time with him starting? Again, I don't know which of these paths is correct, but that's going to be for the Brewers to figure out.
Yeah, I asked Todd about this last week because it was fresh off the Brewers facing Corbin Burns and Baltimore. Brewers had success against Burns, lost that game, but had success. Revisiting this trade, it's obviously too early to do that because Joey Ortiz is ostensibly the starting shortstop for the Milwaukee Brewers once Willy Adames is gone, whether that's midway through this year or next year. It feels like that's what they got. And you can't, starting big league shortstops don't grow on trees. Starting pitchers don't grow on trees. So they theoretically get those 2 positions out of the trade for 1 year of Corbin Burns. That looks great on paper. What looks less great on paper is when you go watch the Baltimore Orioles and all their absolutely stacked, loaded farm system now at the big league level, crushing the ball. And you wonder, like, okay, well, did they get the highest value guys they could have? I mean, there's so many other great players that are making an impact, and you've got a couple guys here whose futures are unclear, but certainly not slam dunks. Joey Ortiz has actually hit the ball pretty well and has played a pretty good third base, but his value, I think, still lies in what's ahead. So it's tough to evaluate. And similarly for DL Hall, like it isn't clear what he's going to be, but it sure would be nice if these guys who were, acquired because they were prospects ready for the big leagues could be pretty important figures in 2024, especially as you watch Corbin Burnes again have a really nice year, at least a nice start with Baltimore. I don't know if you have any change in thoughts on how that trade plays out. It's it's really hard to evaluate, but it's also like, I'm still pining for Colby Mayo and Colton Cowser in retrospect, as how cool it would be to have those guys. Granted, they play positions the Brewers didn't need. They needed a starting pitcher and a shortstop of the future, and they got that.
Good thing they didn't trade for Jackson Holiday. Am I right?
Oh yeah, that would stack up the Jacksons in this farm system.
Wolf City, one for 27.
Oh man, it's been
16 strikeouts. Not great, Bob.
I'm sorry. Did you say 16? 1 for 27, 16 strikeouts?
Have you not been aware of this?
What? That's not even real. I have not been aware of that.
Real.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
It's been overmatched as overmatched gets, which is wild. Like we've seen Jackson Chourio have a little bit of struggles.
Yeah, but he's been solid. He's got 4 bombs.
Kind of puts it in perspective a lot of bit actually. I mean, probably Holiday's still fine. I don't want to say I'm reacting too much to his first week and a half in the big leagues, but I'm not reacting 0% to it.
I mean, the whole point is that he was ready for this. He was ready to go. That's wow.
I don't really have any more thoughts on the Burnes thing. Actually, maybe this Joey Ortiz at the plate. I think he's looked a little more refined than I expected, which is a good thing. Like some of the swing decisions are better. He's walking, and you can definitely see some pieces there. And I was maybe not expecting that so much right off the bat in part-time duty. So that's, I think, for as discouraging as DL Hall's starting time has been, Joey Ortiz has been pretty good. There's been a couple iffy games at third base, but you'll see the tools on defense, and like he is pretty new to third base. He hasn't played that position.
Right, for sure. All right, let's talk about a couple things that are awesome. The offense is awesome. And I'm coming back to a couple guys that we've talked about a little bit, Blake Perkins and Brice Turang. And in fact, I didn't tease this at the outset, and I should have. I've got an interview with with Blake Perkins after this. I'm very excited. It's going to be fantastic. Blake Perkins joined me, chatted during this homestand against San Diego, so he's coming up after this. These guys right now, Perkins and Terang, they kind of rule, like you're getting really good Willy Adames right now. You're getting as good as it gets William Contreras, who is like MVP level William Contreras. Christian Yelich, yes, is hurt. He officially went on the injured list this week. That's a problem. Don't know when or how he's going to bounce back, but he has been unreal when he was in there. So that's a little bit of a wild card at this point. But like you've got those are 3 cornerstone offensive players that have been awesome. And at some point you have to sit back and say, okay, Blake Perkins and Brice Turang are for real. The defense is solid. It's better than solid. It's what it's been. Offensively, man, like I know Brice Turang doesn't hit the ball hard. The exit velos are very poor, even as good as he's been. But now 2 homers, stealing everything under the sun. He's fallen to second in the National League, but still 9 stolen bases. Can he do this on like patty cake singles and steals of second? Is that possible? And can Blake Perkins contribute at some similar level to that? Like I'm starting to believe a little bit. I'm starting to believe that it is that word sustainable. I'm starting to feel like we could maybe see that happening. I don't know.
I'll start with Terang. This level probably not sustainable.
No.
But there are some hitters in the league, right, that are able to really play up the hit tool despite having little to no game power. Terang is a guy who you would certainly categorize as having little to no game power. However, what he has, the way to tap into that, and I had to talk with some Brewers people about this in the spring, like the way to maximize what you have when you don't hit the ball very hard is like take advantage of the contact tool, right? Make your pitch selection better, cut down on the whiffs, and then work yourself into a position to get better pitches to hit. And then like he's hit tooling a couple of pull side home runs. Like that's what it's going to be. He's able to lift some fly balls to the pull side. Not a ton. He doesn't do it often. But if you can work that into 10 homers a year, then you've got just a little bit of damage in there, and it's not, 85% singles. But the main thing here is his whiff rate is down significantly. He's leaning all the way into the hit tool and doing it exquisitely. And by doing so, you know what? Probably some of the the softly struck base hits, those are going to dry up. Some of them. But you do enough of it and you kind of get like the right loft on the ball, the right angle, the right spray angle. You'll get some hits, especially if you're, going to all fields like he does. And then once he's on base, it's a problem for the defense. It's, singles or doubles with him a lot of the time because he's just going to steal second every time.
Yeah. What about our guy, Blake Perkins, who is pretty much an everyday center fielder at this point?
Oh, it's Blake Perkins respect time.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the podcast.
I think
have you disrespected Blake Perkins on this podcast? I can't remember.
Have I disrespected him? No.
No.
Other than I would say that I gave him the Colin Ray treatment. Like, I've mentioned his name as like, yeah, he's a guy.
Yeah, you just kind of gloss over it,
right. He's a guy.
That's not happening anymore.
No. He is a delight. I was going to say, like, because it's also important to note that the center fielders, there were so many options coming into the year. We've said this before. Sal Frelick is an outfield defender. I don't think is as great as we'd like to see at this point. Joey Wiemer's bat isn't play, you can't play there. So he's got to get better offensively before you put him in the outfield. I think at center, he'd be fine. Jackson Churio is not a center fielder either at this point. Garrett Mitchell's hurt. Like Blake Perkins is your starting center fielder and he's hitting the ball and he can fly. And he's Lorenzo Cain in center field, man. He is Lorenzo Cain in center field.
It's such a good comp because like there was a ball late in the Wednesday game against the Padres where it was, about mid warning track, short warning track. And you had no idea if Blake Perkins was gonna look up and that thing's off the batter's eye or pull up and catch it. And of course he just pulls up and catches it because the routes are so smooth. And I feel like we haven't gotten a chance to really like see Blake Perkins defense on full display this season. There hasn't been that perfect opportunity for him, but he makes things like pretty dang easy. And the offense, JR, it's
not nothing.
It's compelling. He's not going to have a 900 OPS all year, probably.
Why not?
But I feel like I could be wrong about this, but I felt like a lot of times last year he just kind of struggled to put the ball into play, and he's no longer doing that. So Blake Perkins, everybody.
I'll point out it's a 976 OPS right now. He also tremendous dude, very easy to talk to, was a great interview, and talked about something that was interesting in those the way that the metrics have advanced in defense. I think I get the sense that he was dinged a little bit for being kind of nonchalant as a defender. I don't think people understood that wasn't sort of disinterest. It was just being so skilled at knowing where the ball is, getting such a good jump, being so comfortable out there like Lorenzo Cain. We sometimes mistook that for not laziness, but just like whatever, kind of loafing around. That's not what it was. It was the dude is so locked in and knows exactly where to be that he doesn't need to work that hard, So yeah, we haven't seen the diving catches or the wall, the home run robberies or anything from Blake Perkins because most of it is just chill center field play. So I found that interesting. He said that, the way that the analytics have developed, it's identifying him as being as good as he is. I think he probably slipped through the cracks as somebody who could contribute on a big league level because no one understood just how good he was defensively.
Yeah, he's been around a long time too. So you got to wonder like what these other orgs, that he was a part of, thought of his defense. If they realized it was elite level at the major league level, the Brewers did. They gave him a big league contract,
right?
2 off seasons ago.
Before he played his first major league game.
Yeah, he really hadn't blown the cover off the ball at AAA either. The offensive numbers are kind of whatever at that level.
Yeah. Last thing before we get to 3 up, 3 down, that's also awesome. I want to go to take a tour of the minor leagues right now, Curt. Because on the surface, I would say that the Brewers minor league experience thus far has been below average. If you're looking at like the top dudes in the farm, Jacob Mizorowski has struggled with his command pretty mightily. Pitcher Carlos Rodriguez has not been quite the player that he was last year. Tyler Black's defense has been really, really rough. He's good offensively still, but like I really believed in him as a guy who could break camp with this team, but he just didn't really have a position. He still doesn't have a defensive position where he can hold his own. So that's not going great. You've got the injuries to Brock Wilken and Jefferson Caro and Cooper Pratt. Like, obviously that's a lot of bad, but there's so many interesting guys cropping up. We could talk about some of them. Some of them maybe will even fit into 3 up, 3 down. Mike Bovey is one that definitely comes to mind, who just got bumped up to AA Biloxi, who is hitting an absurd better than 550 is his batting average at this point in the season. That's absurd. Early round draft pick last year. He's moving up. There's Yofiri Rodriguez, who we might want to mention again. We could throw names at the wall. We don't need to go through a Rolodex because there are just a ton of names, especially pitchers, that are really rising to the occasion. But give me a couple bullet points, guys that you really think Brewers fans should be paying attention to right now with where the minor league system is at.
Oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my. Well, if I don't have a Google Doc for this exact scenario, probably a story in the near future. I want to say Ryan Burchard, but here's a little bit of a little microbrew news scoopy scoop for you. He's dealing with a little bit of an oblique issue right now. So he has not pitched in a while. So I'm not going to go with him. Boy, oh boy. There's a lot of names.
I know.
Let's talk about Craig Yoho, shall we?
I mean, that is not a name that anyone has really paid attention to if they're
other than the last name being Yoho,
which is a dope last name. Tremendous work.
Yes, there. Incredible. Like, you have to be a big league reliever with the last name Yoho. You it needs to happen. And guess what? He has the arsenal to do so. He is, he's throwing an airbender, first of all. It looks like a screwball. It looks like the airbender. He's got a bunch of different breaking balls. Like, he's throwing one like 86 to 88 miles an hour. I can't tell if it's cutter or slider. It's kind of like, what's going on here? The fastball velocity does not blow you away. It's 91, 93. A lot of movement though. It gets the arm side run on the 2 seam pretty well. So it's actually kind of nice though. Kind of fun to like see a reliever who's not throwing 98 as a prospect, and you're like, oh, this guy's still super interesting. And Craig Yoho's that guy. He's also got like a slower curve / sweeper. And the command is there too. So he's at High, Wisconsin right now, striking out the world, not walking anybody. He'll be promoted, I'm sure.
Yeah, he's 24 years old. He's going to work his way up fast.
Yeah, and it's, if this continues, it's certainly a track record for like, could this guy be in Milwaukee at some point next year? And the stuff, like, if you get a chance to watch some of these changeups, I think I tweeted out some of his pitches. It's nasty stuff. Like, if you just put Devin Williams on the mound instead, and you said, okay, this is a Devin Williams changeup, I would believe it. So that's the Craig Yoho respect of this episode.
And I mean, Yofiri, we've talked about a little bit. He's sort of our sleeper as like the next Jackson Chourio in this system.
And if you really want to get excited about him, and I put out a very responsible tweet about Yofiri Rodriguez on Saturday night. Incredibly irresponsible. But I'll let you make the judgment.
Yeah, the comparison on stats of where Jackson Chourio and Yofiri were at this age and this level, they're just identical, if not a little bit more in Yofiri's favor. So get excited about him if you want. What about guys, though, that are going to be here this year? Because I have been watching the minor leagues, and there are so many names of people that I know now, thinking of them in terms of this guy could be in Milwaukee. This guy could be in Milwaukee. That guy should be promoted tomorrow. Like, there's so many guys that I wasn't thinking about because I was kind of focused on those first maybe 20 names on the prospect list. And I mean, the depth really is there. It's not all the way ready, but some of it's going to be ready by the end of this year. So
yeah, it's not so much AAA depth, right?
Right. Exactly.
There's a couple guys like Blake Holub has been really interesting, actually. If the more you look into it at AAA, the guy that got back from Arcana in the winter, like Brad Blaylock, you're telling me, I mean, he's a starter long term for sure, but you're telling me like, maybe August, September, you can get that guy up in the bullpen, have him throw, a little harder, maybe 95, 96.
That's Corbin Burns, man.
Yeah, with the way that his fastball moves, that definitely could happen. He's still a ways off from being big league ready right now. I mean, he just got up to AA, so give the kid some time. But it's possible that they could try to do the thing that they have tried to do, not for a while, but not since Ashby in 22. Have they, really done the Corbin Burns treatment, Josh Hader, Freddie Peralta? They tried it with too.
Bring you up as a reliever, let you get your feet wet, and then we'll figure it out from there what your future is. That's Bradley Blaylock already on the 40-man roster, so he has a leg up that way. Although, as we saw this week, and we'll talk about that in 3 Up, 3 Down, it's not that that's a make or break situation. You can add a guy. There are going to be guys that are going to get added. It's going to be kind of fun for prospect heads, because I think some of these dudes are going to have to pitch in Milwaukee. We've already talked about Robert Gasser ad nauseum. They need him. They need a starter, especially if DL Hall is going to move down or move into the pen. Someone's got to take those innings. Someone has to be able to go 5 at least. Robert Gasser might be your guy. I don't know. I don't know. Any other names before that you really want to hit on before we move into 3 Up, 3 Down?
Bishop Letson. There's a lot. I'm not going to spoil it all. I got a story coming at some point.
You got a story. All right. So keep an eye for that at jsonline.com. Bishop Letson, love him. 11th rounder. And we won't go into the whole thing about the draft and how it works. It's complicated, but signing an 11th rounder is kind of interesting to me. That was not an easy thing to do when it was somebody at that high of a caliber like Bishop Letson. And he's starting out guns ablazing. He's a high school kid. 19 years old. It's going to be a while, but still cool stuff. Okay, let's get into some of the more granular details from the week, as we always do. It is 3 Up, 3 Down. Curt, I know where I want to start, so I'm going to go first. And it is a play on Wednesday. The Brewers 1-0 game. It was in the 8th inning. Curt, I do not know how they won that game. I don't know how they won the 1-0 game. I don't know how they won the 2-1 game. I had absolutely left them for dead in both circumstances, but they managed to get the 1 run, and then Abner Uribe keeping the game tied at 0 in the 8th. No, I'm mixed up. It might have been 1-0 at that point. I don't know.
It was still 0-0
because they scored in the bottom. Okay. Abner Uribe makes an amazing play, gets off the mound in a hurry. There's a runner at third, 2 outs, gets to basically a swinging bunt, fields it, whips it over to first base off balance. There's no scenario where I thought that ball wasn't going to end up down the right field line or in the stands or in the dugout, but it was on the money. He gets the out. He celebrates like a star. He's got some great celebrations. Brewers get out of the inning. They do not allow the run. They come out and they score in the bottom half of that inning. They win the game 1-0. Abner Uribe continues to be must-see TV. We've talked about it before. That play was sensational, dude. About as good as it gets between the play itself and the reaction. Just awesome stuff.
Freddie Peralta has been so good.
So good. Oh, my God.
That honestly, we don't really even talk about it.
We have not said his name at all. The man has a 1.90 ERA through 4 starts, and we're just like,
This is very similar to what we saw in the second half last year, except there was just like some ill-timed hits or homers in the second half. And granted, it's only 4 starts. In the solo, there's been 2 homers, I think, and they've both been of the solo variety.
Yeah.
He's been so good. I thought he was totally out of gas on Friday night, bases loaded. 2 outs in the 6th, Brewers up by 1, Nolan Gorman full count. Like, he had to battle to get to the full count, and I was like, there is simply no way this pitch is in the strike zone. Perfectly dotted at the top of the zone, 94. I don't know how he found that in the gas tank. Gorman had no chance, swing and a miss. Just part of another great start from Freddie. ERA is what? Got to be at 2 or around 2 at this point.
1.9.
1.9. The FIP matches that almost exactly. He's done the jump. He has taken the jump. We'll see how he sustains it going forward, but man, the fastball is just setting everything up, and it's making the slider impossible for guys to hit.
Yeah, he's
been really good.
All right, my number 2. The defense is kind of interesting this year because you do have, we've talked a bunch about Terang and Adames, Joey Ortiz, Jake Bauers at first base. You wrote about his scoops, went way in depth on that at jsonline.com. You have to read that if you haven't read that. Just really good stuff, really interesting sort of in-depth analysis really from Jake Bauers and Blake Perkins in center. The defense in other parts of the diamond, not always great. Corner outfield defense is still a little bit of a struggle at times. Sal Frelick, Jackson Churio, who's still getting
Gary
feet wet.
Sanchez trying to frame the ball.
I was going to bring up Gary Sanchez, who I think has been really, really rough all the way around. He did have he had a double. I think he's got a couple extra base hits. He's got a homer, but like the bat is not there and the defense is not there. So they got Eric Haas might need to be an option at some point. It's hard to envision this lasting all year long, but maybe he figures something out. It's going to some of that stuff's going to take a while to take. Anyway, I wanted to actually circle this all back to Rhys Hoskins, who's not a good defender. No one thinks he is, but made, I think, the defensive play of the game on Saturday, which was a blowout, but it was 5-4 when Rhys Hoskins made a diving catch that he turned into a double play at a point when, Hall's on the mound. The Cardinals are getting like 2-3 people on base every inning. And he makes a play that really just kind of turned off the spigot. It was just a very weird pivot moment in that game. The Brewers offense kept pouring it on. So it ends up not being like that dramatic of a moment, but a really important play by Rhys Hoskins, who's again, not the defensive wizard that Jake Bauers is, or that, he wasn't brought here for his defense, but I do think the broader question of the defense, though, is it's not maybe as good as I think the Brewers want it to be. I think there's probably some tweaks that they would love to see or some improvement they would like to see, because it's not just about those guys up the middle, and the catching has to improve if it's Gary Sanchez. Well, Contreras has been fine, but Sanchez, that's tough. That's tough, Curt.
Yeah, I would agree. The defense has been good at times, great, but on the whole, kind of just been okay. This is okay.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to need it to be better over the long term. But one of those days where it was really good, you mentioned Abner Uribe's play was Wednesday. What was also great in that game, and the defense helped him out too, was Bryce Wilson getting the start, going much longer than I think any of us probably predicted. He almost went through 4 full innings. Just, he was really effective, scoreless outing. And then Brian Hudson comes in, and the two of them combined to give a 6-run, basically a 6-inning shutout start, which it has not been a great start to the season for Bryce Wilson. He really figured it out, I think, in his last couple of outings.
Yeah, it was good.
But Brian Hudson, where is Brian Hudson on your tiers of trust bullpen ranking? Let's again, we did not record this Sunday in case things went woefully wrong. Well, then you have some old takes for JR. Where is Brian Hudson on your circle of trust?
I will say that I did an interview with Brian Hudson as well that we're not going to run next week because won't have a chance to get another one on there. I fully trust. There was certainly a point where I would have wanted that to run immediately because there's no guarantee the guy's even on the team in a week. That's not the case at this point. He's very, very important. Now he's unique because I don't think they want to get him in there just for an inning. He's a guy that they would want to rely on for 2 innings or more, but he's excellent. I mean, they really did a great job adding to their cadre of like under the radar signings there. That's a money pickup. He's going to be here for a while.
You didn't answer my question.
On my tiers of trust, well, I do trust him. I trust him in the same tier that I would trust Abner Uribe and Elvis Peguero. So
he's my number 1.
He's your number 1. I'd still put Payamps number 1. Payamps has been roughed up a couple times, but only after he's pitched like right after pitching the night before. So I feel like it's a little forgivable. Payamps is still my number 1, I think. And then it's the Abner, Hudson, Peguero triumvirate.
Actually, my number 1 might be Trevor McGill.
Well, McGill's a little bit of an incomplete because he's been hurt, so I don't know. He was certainly good on Friday.
This gets to a point that I didn't get to earlier. I forgot to bring this up when talking about the bullpen. Part of the deal with the bullpen is that number 1 through number 7 is like very like the separation is very small.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Like could Thiago Vieira come in a tight spot to get outs? He's probably the bottom of my tiers.
Absolutely, though. The difference between pick your number 1, which for me it's Fitz McGill, to Thiago Vieira. That is maybe the smallest of gaps in the major leagues. Besides, I don't know who has a really bad bullpen. The Houston Astros, where Josh Hader is imploding in front of our eyes.
What a great stray! Love that.
They just don't have a gap between 1 and 8. Like it's all the same guy on a night-to-night basis. I feel like.
I agree with you, and that's maybe part of as we talk about the Pat Murphy bullpen usage. Some of it is just like, I don't know, it's not a use your best guys or your worst guys. It's a pick your poison because everybody is producing right now. So, yeah, Josh Hader having one of those experiences like he did in 2022, where he was bad for a while, like legitimately bad, and then turned it around and figured it out. I have full confidence that he will, but it has been a rough start after signing that big deal to be with the Houston Astros. Rough start for the Astros in general. I'm going to close it down in my 3 up, 3 down. We're going to talk about this really fun moment that happened a little behind the curtain on Wednesday. You and I were covering the Brewers. We were there for pregame, and we were really excited about the possibility that Tobias Meers would walk through that door. We just talked about some of the minor league pitchers, some of the excellent players in the system that could contribute. Meers was not listed in the probables at Nashville, and we thought maybe there's a chance he could come up because we didn't know Bryce Wilson was going to be pitching Wednesday to start. We knew he'd be pitching, but we didn't know when. Maybe they bring up Meers. Maybe they try to patch it together with what they have. Jared Koenig had thrown back-to-back days. I think we thought he would be a candidate to go down to the minors at that point, but no roster move had been made. So we're talking about it. I don't know if we want to reveal the name of the other media member, but he was kind of like, they weren't going to make that move. It's April. They're not going to be burning a 40-man spot, bringing Tobias Meers up. And I won't reveal the media guy's name, but I have to say that I was like, you know what? You're right. They were never going to bring Tobias Meers up. And at that moment, Tobias Meers walks into the clubhouse. Oh my gosh, that was wild. That was surreal almost. Like, it's like we willed him into existence, Curt. He didn't get to pitch, which is a bummer, but like he's gonna now. It was wild. What a great time.
The best part of this season has been seeing guys just walk into the clubhouse. It has happened like 5 times now where you're standing there. In Baltimore, it was Joey Weimer, and I was like, oh, hello, Joey Weimer.
I messaged you on Tuesday. Oh, Owen Miller's here. And I was like, no, I got that wrong. It's Oliver Dunn, right? And then I said that to Adam McCalvey. It's like, I told Curt that Owen Miller's here, but it's Oliver Dunn. And he's like, are you messing with me? That's Owen Miller right there. It's like, oh, yes, it is. Okay, I was right the first time. Owen Miller is here. He takes Christian Yelich's spot on the roster. They don't even look that much alike.
Oliver Dunn is a redhead.
Yes. And a lefty, which doesn't really apply.
Doesn't apply in the clubhouse. No.
How
about let's close it up with the closer, Hoby Milner, proven closer. I could not believe he did not have a career save.
He's got like 247 appearances without one. That's wild.
Like, everyone gets a save. The first career save, for the most part, like it's not a thing that works with me, because so often for guys, it's like Thiago's wasn't even his first career save. This is exactly my point. But he got a save against the Mariners by going 3 innings. That's how a lot of guys will get him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they'll get him in a 3-run game, or in the extra innings or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope he not having one was a surprise, because he has pitched, I'm pretty sure, like every year in the big league since like 17 or 18. I could not believe that one time in that stretch he hadn't gotten a save.
And before the 3-batter minimum, where you could easily see, okay, tough lefty, let's bring in Milner to just close it down. It's a 3-run game or whatever.
That's the other part of it too, is like Hoby has pitched a decent amount of times in extra innings. He was kind of the new Suter for Craig Counsell, depending on the outing. The funky lefty, they loved Suter in that spot in extra innings, and he was pretty dang good at it too. I couldn't believe he didn't have a save. And this one was like really hard earned too. Middle of the Cardinals lineup coming up, although caveat, this ain't no middle of the Cardinals lineup anymore. They got some guys that are not hitting the ball, but still big names. Wilson Contreras is smashing, and he stranded that inherited runner. He pitched really well, froze Nolan Gorman on the slider or the curveball, whatever, to get the save. So congrats, Hoby Milner. You have a save.
So that'll do it for 3 up, 3 down. We could have talked about how Manny Machado lined shots off of the knees of 2 pitchers in one game. Wade Miley and Elvis Peguero both getting plunked by Manny Machado screamers. Could you not, Manny Machado, who gets roundly booed every time he walks into American Family Field? So that continues to be an ongoing bit that I do appreciate. We could have talked more about Wilson Contreras. Sorry, not Wilson. That's the other guy. William Contreras. Wilson Contreras being his brother in this St. Louis series. William is unbelievable. I mean, he had the big hit to give them the 2-1 win, the extra inning hit to set up Hobie Milner's first career save. He's kind of Johnny on the spot pretty much at all times. He's crushing it. So those are things that we did not touch on. We never really said Michael King's name, the Padres pitcher who had the no-hitter with 2 outs in the 7th on Wednesday before the Brewers figured it out, scratched across a couple like duck snort hits, turned into 1 run in the 1-0 win. Probably a little unfair to Michael King. He was awesome. All right, that'll do it. Let's move into some old-timey Milwaukee Brewers stuff. It's going back to Remember When. Speaking of that Michael King no-hitters back on top of mind, I was thinking about the year 1988. We talked about 89 last year, but I'm going back to a time when the Brewers, who threw a bullpen game that day, almost got a no-hitter out of a guy who started as a relief pitcher. He was just basically there to soak up some innings. Teddy Higuera had gotten hurt, and this guy ended up taking a no-hitter into the 9th. Curt, do you know this man's name by chance?
Nope.
It's a no.
I got nothing.
His name is Odell Jones, and we learned this week. We learned this week that Odell Jones had passed away. He had died back in March, 71, I believe was his age. Learned from a Pirates beat writer who had that in. Not a memorable major leaguer. He was a reliever. He has a really interesting career. There were 5 times, Curt, he pitched 5 years in the big leagues, 5 different seasons in which he did not appear the year before. So actually 6 if you count his debut season. So what I mean is, he'd go a year in the big leagues or 2 years in the big leagues, off a year, 2 years in the big leagues, off a year. There were 5 different seasons in which he had been like out of big leagues the year before. I don't know if anybody has a career like that. I don't know. Cause guys have breaks and because of injury or whatever. Who? Jay
Jackson.
Jay Jackson, maybe. Yeah.
Check that out. I'm thinking of the alike type players.
I mean, it's really unusual. But anyway, Odell Jones, he was facing Cleveland that day, and he took a no-hitter. He got a strikeout of Dave Clark for the first out of the 9th. And Ron Washington, future big leaguer, ends up singling on a 1-1 pitch that kept the Brewers from getting a no-hitter in their 2nd straight season. Julio Franco, future Brewer, followed with a single against Dan Plesac, who came in at that point, but Plesac got the save. Brewers won 2-0. Jones is 35 years old, 8 1/3 innings. That was the longest no-hitter without successfully completing it from Teddy Higuera, or I should say Juan Nieves in 1987, all the way to 2021 when they got the combined no-hitter with Corbin Burns and Josh Hader. Nobody had gotten that far. He struck out 7. He walked 1. The thing is, he was completely out of gas. He was a reliever. Like, he had no business going into the 9th. And if it were today, he wouldn't have gone in the 9th. He wouldn't have gone into the 5th. But because no-hitters were so sacred and hallowed back in the 80s, the manager just let him go. Treblehorn just let him go. Jones wasn't supposed to start. Like I said, it was Higuera who had some back spasms. He said afterwards, Jones said that he was really tired. He was straining to get the ball up there. He had good rhythm, but he was really straining. He's not physically ready to do this. The only reason I went back out there was I had the perfect game and the no-hitter. The perfect game actually went into the 8th, where he walked Mel Hall with 1 out. So he had a perfect game with 7 1/3. 38,000 fans. This was in Cleveland. They gave him an ovation. They loved him, but the dude was just out of gas. He had not started. This is again 1988. He had not started a game since October of 1981. So 7 years had gone by in between starts. He was only on the roster because Tom Treblehorn liked him when Treblehorn was a minor league manager in Portland, I believe, in like 1982, and he had gotten to know Odell Jones and gave him a shot. Just a journeyman reliever. This was his only year with the Brewers. I think his last year in the big leagues. Wild career, wild night. Rest in peace, Odell Jones. It's just a weird story, like just the randomness of baseball, where some guy who is certainly not meant to last very long into the game. Jones, by the way, did get one more start. It did not go well. I don't believe he made it into the 5th inning. He did not start again for the Brewers in his big league career. So there it is. That is the Remember When, the back in time portion of the program. But now we close it down the best way we can, and that is with Curt Hogue's take of the week. It is Carte Blanche.
That's right. It's my time. It's my mic. Let's go. What are the St. Louis Cardinals doing?
Well, that's a really good question, Curt. I love that. Tell me exactly what you're thinking.
I am perplexed. Not necessarily at what, maybe it's not so much at what the Cardinals are doing in 2024. Because if you line up this offseason with gestures broadly to the last 12 years of the St. Louis Cardinals, it's really not that different. Bring in Matt Carpenter, bring in Brandon Crawford, bring in Kyle Gibson, bring in Lance Lynn. Sonny Gray, good pitcher, but still injury prone and old. Although he might shove it to the Brewers on Sunday. Again, TBD. We'll see.
You know, listeners, we don't.
At this point, we don't.
5-3 Cardinals win.
Like if you had told me the Cardinals did that in 2015, but with like, I couldn't tell you who the 2015 free agents were, but this is just generally how they have operated. I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense. That's a totally reasonable offseason for the St. Louis Cardinals to do. The thing is, like, I'm not sure how they've been so good. I'm starting to think that last year was less of an aberration, still maybe a bit of an aberration, but like, maybe they'll prove me very wrong, but I don't know if this team is that good. They're relying on a lot out of Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. Maybe that's what actually carried them through some like wonky player evaluation and legitimately overrated player development too, I think, was those two dudes turned 30 and just became they were already world beaters, but became even more beaters of the world. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was covering some blemishes or, if they really just missed Tommy Edman, because it feels like it, like I'm thinking about it. And I think, and rightfully so, the Cardinals got credit for turning a lot of kind of random guys into good players. John Jay, Daniel Descalso, if you want to call him, if he was good for a while there. Colton Wong was the sort of guy. Tommy Edman is that exact guy. Lars Nootbaar certainly fits the mold.
Paul DeYoung.
But Paul DeYoung for a little bit. But then there's the flip side of it. It's like Paul DeYoung gets to be the shortstop for 4 years when he's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Walker has not figured it out yet.
It's not working.
Ivan Herrera's probably pretty good, but you know what? They never played him until this year, and they signed Wilson Contreras to be to take away playing. So it's just a combination of like, I'm a bit confused here as to what the move is, and I think the player development has certainly had, like, the farm system has not been great for the last while.
Well, they've traded, Adolis Garcia and Randy Arozarena in the World Series last year, the all former Cardinals.
Tyler O'Neill goes away and he mashes. Like, that's the thing that's what happens, and that happens a lot. So I'm just like, really? Wow. I mean, like, the Cardinals were the most consistent team, not named the Dodgers, from 2010 until last year.
They're the boogeyman.
Maybe you can even go farther back than that. With the same front office too. Did the game just catch up to them in 1 year, or did they kind of just operate this way the whole time and they had a few hits and it worked? I don't know. I'm starting to think it's the latter, though.
Yeah, the Yadier Molina of it all. I mean, he may be overrated, but he was pretty dang good. And he maybe papered over some of the deficiencies, even with the pitching staff, with the way that he was able to manage games. And I do think a lot of it is Goldschmidt and Arenado. Arenado kind of fell off a cliff sort of last year, and unexpectedly, I would say those guys were really, really tough to deal with. And
Goldschmidt's at the cliff right now for sure too.
Yeah, Goldschmidt's always hit well against the Brewers, but kind of low key not that great otherwise. So he's been slipping too. Yeah, they've reached a point where there's just no one in that lineup that truly scares you. I mean, does anyone in that lineup scare you? That was the thing when they took a lead today. It was 5-4.
Yeah, I mean, Wilson Contreras is really hot right now, so I think that's part of it. But
I don't know. I'd rather have William.
When Goldschmidt came up to bat on Friday night with the game
essentially on the line,
bases loaded, 2 outs, bottom of the ninth, my thought was, this is probably okay for the he's probably not going to get a hit to end the game. He might walk, or they might bean him in the shoulder. I don't think he's going to get a hit here, and that's kind of where the Cardinals lineup is at.
Yeah, and there some weird managerial stuff. Like, I have questions there as well. So I don't know. I don't know what they were able, sort of magic alchemy they were able to develop that has not worked. But I agree with you. They're not churning out stars like they maybe it seems like they were for a long time. And if they weren't, they were doing what the Brewers have done, which is kind of find guys on the fringes, guys who were DFA'd or waiver claims or whatever, and turning them into productive players. We haven't seen that either. So I certainly would not be afraid of them at this point in time. they could prove me wrong. But in the Central Division, I think it's the Cubs, it's the Brewers, and just one of the Reds or the Pirates have the
maybe the
ability
I think the Reds have it way more than the Pirates do.
For sure. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Certainly the Reds have the upside that could make some noise in 2024 and beyond for sure. All right, Curt, that'll do it. We again, sadly, just don't know what's going to happen in this season finale or a series finale on Sunday, but we should we will be watching the Milwaukee Bucks probably as you're during our normal podcast time. I will hopefully be there at Pfizer Forum, but we will be back again, of course, next week to talk all about what we heard and saw from the week of Brewers baseball. The Yankees are coming to town over the weekend. The Pirates, Curt, will be going to Pittsburgh to check out Milwaukee against Rowdy Tellez, the fighting Rowdy Tellezes, and the Pittsburgh Pirates, and then it's the Yankees. Curt, any last thoughts before I send you away?
Please don't rain on Thursday. Yeah, I don't care about Monday through Wednesday.
Just Thursday.
On Thursday.
You have a flight.
Please.
Curt needs to get home. If you could arrange that, Mother Nature, that would be very nice of you. Appreciate that. Okay. If you are watching us on YouTube, this is where it ends. Like and subscribe. Let us know how much you love us. Give us ratings, reviews, comments. We love it all. Heart gestures. That's a controversial move.
Don't ask me about it. Don't ask me.
don't ask me about the heart
gesture. Ask me about my heart gesture.
Yeah. Thank you for watching us there. If you're listening to us on your normal podcast platforms, you will now hear my interview with Blake Perkins. Thanks for tuning in this week. We will chat with you again very soon. Bye-bye.